All right. So I guess good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining the Safety and Technology Committee meeting. Today is Monday, February 6th, and we're calling the meeting to order at 5:41 p.m. First order of business, adoption of previous meeting minutes. We previously met on Wednesday, December 7th. We called the meeting to order at 5:10 p.m. In attendance were David Leese, Lisa Raymond, Dr. Christopher Macaluso, Ashley Pineda, Chris Fallon, David Warner. We adopted the previous meeting minutes, discussed committee charges, which we'll follow up to tonight. Talked about safety. At that point, we were looking into big detectors for deployment at the middle high school and potentially at RJ Bailey. Talked about inventory of radios being requested for principals and directors, cell-repeater conversation, as well as a conversation around the process of hiring additional 3 security staff. Security investigator contractor at that point was still waiting for the material to begin the project. And we had a discussion on technology and website update. At that point in time, we had hit a roadblock on the finalized contract, and we were going to go back out and attempt to get another solution. We also had a footnote here that the current service provider at the time was also purchased by another company. We were going to look into that to see if there was any feasibility to use them. We had an update on the one-to-one advice program, specifically around the position of a new educational technology specialist that would focus on the asset management system. We also talked about the 125 additional Chromebook devices that were placed via the CRISA funds. We had an update presented by Mr. Leese on Computer Science Week and the activities that occurred at Lee F. Jackson, RJ Bailey, and the high school. We closed open session at 5:32 p.m. We went into closed session, and at the end of closed session, we adjourned the meeting. Does anybody have any revisions to this agenda, or is this how we all recall it?
What time did we start the meeting?
We started it at 5:10 p.m.
And okay, 5:22.
Open session at 5:32, and then we can vote.
We just didn't do that. Yeah, okay.
That was the day of the concert.
So right. You were zooming.
We were zooming to make it to the concert.
Yeah. All
right. Do I hear a motion to adopt these meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll go ahead and adopt these meeting minutes. Yep. All right, for tonight. So that's number 1. Number 2, we had talked about the June meeting date. Originally, we proposed a date of Thursday, June 29th from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. That date doesn't work for Mr. Leese. And given June is the end of the school year and there's a lot of moving parts, my suggestion is that we forego the June meeting and just resume during the 2023-2024 school year. Is anyone opposed to that plan? Yes.
Can I say we can forego that date, but let's put a pin in choosing a different date in case we want updates on what's happening over the summer if we're going to do all of the refurbishment, et cetera. We may want to talk about that if we don't cover it in May.
So maybe.
Because May meeting was early, which.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
That we just think ahead now for the May agenda that I could be prepared to do a year-end review as part of my report out and summer project report.
Okay.
And what we need to follow up.
Okay, so then question, it's before, is it May the 11th? So it's before the budget vote?
Right.
So if anything goes south on the budget, will that have any impact on anything we do here?
Potentially.
Okay. So
Do
we
we
can
wanna-
call a meeting if we have to. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So we could do that, I guess, July if we have to or something like that.
Or if there's a date available.
Or
early
end of
June.
May or beginning of June, right? Anytime after the 11th. So if we say,
After the vote.
right, anytime, sometime after the vote, we can decide whether to add a meeting back. I don't anticipate anything horrible happening.
Right. Rather leave it up to you.
No problem. Committee charges update. Thank you, Trustee Valiant, for the suggestions you made. Trustee Valiant provided a list of potential committee charges relating specifically around safety elements such as certificates of occupancy and the annual certifications we do. I wanted to talk about that. I didn't add that here because my thought was that kind of falls more on the FinFac. We do a lot of that in FinFac, right, during the tour. Trustee Warner always checks the fire extinguisher dates, et cetera. So I thought that wouldn't really align here. So I left that off. We could add it back if we want to. But I left that off and I put this preliminary set of charges just to get us started. So what I have is the Greenburgh CSD Safety and Technology Committee will periodically provide recommendations to the district's board of trustees and district administrators regarding safety and technology. Safety and Technology Committees exist to perform the following functions: review current safety and security items of importance in the district, evaluate current safety and security processes and make recommendations for enhancements, review current technology items of importance in the district, and evaluate current technology processes and make recommendations for enhancements. That's a starting point. Does anybody want to add anything or remove? Okay, I'm not hearing anything. So let's march forward with these as the charges for now. We can probably think about it some more between now and the next meeting. With any additions or modifications, please let me know. And then we can formally adopt them at our next meeting if we're good with them. And then send them to the board for.
I don't think we have any underlying policies that require us to have anything in particular in our charges, as far as I can tell. Do you?
I don't.
Okay, so then this is. Okay, so you want to wait one more meeting, and if we don't come up with something different, then we recommend to the board that these be our charges?
Correct.
Okay.
Because this was just what came out of my brain, but
Good catch
I
all.
like more brains. Come on.
And just to clarify, do you want to, the items I don't know if you saw it on the draft of the agenda, but the items are that most likely belong to FinFac, derive out of the required health and wellness committee or health and safety committee that's required by the state. And all of those items actually refer to building health, like asbestos testing and things like that. So I think because it is covered wonderful for next year's charge.
We go through and make sure that there's an asbestos plan on
Exactly.
site and
Exactly.
we make sure the fire inspections happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so I just took a note there that we agreed on. All right, let's continue in our open session agenda. Item number 4, safety lobby guard. So lobby guard is the system we use for verifying individuals visiting the school buildings during the day, ensuring that there's no potential issue with them, either legal or some kind of reason that they should not be allowed to come into the building. And that scans their driver's license or whatever documentation they have and runs through security checks. So there's a few questions we have here. These topics have come up before, but we did get them from a community member that raised them again. So it's good that we talk about them again. So the first question is, when schools have events during the day and visitors need to swipe in, is there an additional lobby guard station available for schools to use? And the context behind that is when we have the large events, like let's say dads bring your kids to school day, you know, you have a line queue around the building on a good year of dads trying to get into the building, and there's one terminal and it becomes an issue. Now we have that same situation that repeats itself at all the buildings. And I know that, for example, the middle high school here, there's multiple terminals, but I don't think that's the case in all the buildings. So do we have any spare units we could send out? How would that work?
So we've done some invested, there's a couple of pieces to this. The answer is yes. We have some additional devices that we've recently procured to build capacity in the places that just have the one in the lobby to be able to add a second. So we've already have that in motion and happening. That'll be done before the end of the school year. In addition to that, this was coupled with another conversation around the Vergata access management system. So fortuitously, Vergata has recently purchased LobbyGuard, And this spring, we will be migrating our access management into the Verkada platform, which is actually quite convenient. It will work in alignment with our Verkada camera system. It'll now add the access management system. And what's nice about the Verkada system, we're not just married to those kiosk type devices. We can also use iPad type devices. So in the foreseeable future, as we need that capacity, we can always bring iPads online to work those larger events and put them with monitors, or whatever the case may be, however we're going to staff those events. We'll have that capacity. And that would be for next year. That'll be summer work. That'll be a summer project.
So back in the day when we had to like fill in things for COVID, there were additional stands set up in the lobbies of some of the buildings so we might still have stands to put those iPads on, right? Okay. Something we don't need to buy.
Those are the ones that did the little scan too, right?
Yeah,
Glad we don't have those anymore. All right, so the next question basically falls right into the first one. The second question was, do principals have the ability to request another machine when they know they will have an event? If not, can the district look into having one available? We just answered that. Same answer as before. And then the next question was, how many ID label printers are there?
It's a one-to-one, so per kiosk. So depending on the location, for every one kiosk, there's a printer.
So when we move to the new version, we'll have 2 kiosks in each building, so 2 printers for each building.
Right.
And then expanding on that, how would it work when we get to the iPad world?
So we're gonna have to explore that as an option, see how that will work if we would need to set up. At that point, there are options, technology options for handheld kind of printers and things like that, if that needs to be the case. But as we get into that technology this spring, I'm sure it'll be a conversation that we can explore together and see how that falls out.
and when we say the spring, what are we talking?
I don't have a hard fast timeline, but they're saying it's between now and May.
Okay,
So the high school musical is the biggest.
right. When
The
the
biggest
graduation at the other, or the moving up to the other schools.
Right, and then that's supposed to be, right. And there was an issue as to whether they were going to start the preliminary construction on the vestibule. And we didn't want them to do that over the top of when the musical was going to be, because then you're not able to get into the regular entrance. But they don't even have the storefront stuff in yet. Okay, so, but yeah, we want to get a start when the first stuff arrives, we'll be there, but so that's it.
But it sounds like because the moving ups are during the school day, which would definitely
Yes.
need them. So it sounds like you're on target to get them in before those would happen in June. Okay.
All right, moving along to the next topic, the vape detectors. So I'm gonna go ahead and once again, Ms. Raymond.
I know that Mr. Pugliese has done some legwork on that and has found some vape detectors from different companies. But then it's my understanding that now we want to tie them into the camera system. So it will take a picture of kids leaving the bathroom when the detector goes off. They're still researching that, and I'm not sure that that cost will be conducive to what we can do unless we just target bathrooms that we feel are the main culprits, or where most of the vaping is being done, and then do a combination. Maybe do it that there and then regular vaping machines and others. But I'm going to hand this over to you. David has put out a survey to his counterparts about vape detectors, and the one thing that concerns me is that these different companies, there's false positives. So I think that will become an issue. But David.
There was something about bullying detection or something on unusual noises. Am I thinking about the right thing?
You are. So there's multiple levels of devices you can get into when you get to vape detectors. They're street vape detectors that are kind of aerosol detecting based devices. There are vape / noise detecting devices. So in those small areas, vestibules, bathrooms, locker rooms, they'll also pick up certain decibel noises, which may be an indicator of something that might require some attention. But then again, there's a lot of other intricacies of being able to get alerts in a timely manner to people in the building that can actually respond in the time needed to actually catch somebody red-handed. So that's been problematic, especially still with a lot of the vape detectors. What I'm seeing from the data I'm getting back from around the region, that a lot of the aerosol detectors, they've backed away from them because they're getting so many false positives, like even like cologne or hairspray will set them off also. Because they're that sensitive. And it's also problematic when you don't have a camera or somebody like right in the moment to catch that individual, it becomes problematic. There were even some suggestions about perhaps even getting some guidance from legal about ramifications and enforcing code of conduct and discipline.
Yeah, sorry. We're walking a line here on but I just need to say, since it's being broadcast, that we're talking about cameras, all the cameras we're talking about are outside of the bathroom,
Correct.
taking pictures. People know, I know, but people are listening,
Yeah,
so I just need to
absolutely.
reiterate that those cameras are not invading privacy. That's all I want to say, because we're
Absolutely.
public.
There are no cameras in any
Let's
bathroom.
just walk
Absolutely.
carefully with where.
We don't
Absolutely.
have cameras in the bathroom or locker.
I know, but people are listening, and I don't want anyone misunderstanding that, so, all right, moving on.
Okay, so
We're
it
not
sounds
moving
like likelihood of using a system like that is not very effective, but I guess you guys will investigate a little bit more. But it sounds like that's likely not a good option. Okay. All right, any other questions around vape detection? Okay. Thank you for the update. All right, involve scanners.
So Mr. Police and I met with the vendors of this company. We were asked to reach out to them on the end of January, it was January 27th, I believe. We met with them to look at this product. They're not metal detectors, but they're object detectors. They use AI and other forms of detection for TSA uses them and things like that. You may most similarly recognize them as if you've ever walked out of like a CVS or a Walmart, like those little detection devices that kind of go up. That's similar technology to what we're looking at. They work in concert with tablets and require staffing and whatnot. I've gotten a bunch of information I'm happy to share. I think we could discuss some of the more specifics around pricing and feasibility of the population and ease of movement and part in our closed session. But we have done some initial investigation and gathered the information I've been asked to.
And we also have a meeting this next week with a company that's coming in to show us those different things that can scan pocketbooks, backpacks, duffel bags, but also to secure the high school to have all students will either need a swipe card or a fingerprint to get through, say, the doors past the current security booth. So they wouldn't get into that first little breezeway where the music room is if they can't swipe in, even out exterior doors. So the kids that are coming from the art room back, they will have. So we're looking into, there's a company out there that does that. So they're coming in to give us a demo, but also to probably walk our campus and eventually have their people come out and give us a price. So that we can, so then also that a middle school student can't get to the high school can't get into the middle school, things like that too.
How would we put that? How would we do it away from tailgating, right? So you have one student who's different on the door. Gets
Yeah,
in.
I think we would have to have, so my concern was if we're going to have that kind of system, when you're letting kids in at 7 something in the morning, there's gonna line up. So if, I don't think that all kids will carry a little ID card like we all have, to get in. So I think that would be a problem, but if it was a fingerprint, that could be faster and easier, but if we had security in the morning at those entrances. And like now there is security at, by that entrance for the music, by the art, not by the band room, there is a security guy there. And so I can tell you, for example, when I've been in there saying going up to central office, kids are pounding on the door. I don't usually let them in because I don't know, but there's always a security person around, you know, because they can identify the student faster than I can. It's all those kind of things logistically we have to work out and try to figure out.
You said there's always a security, so the security person lets them in now?
Because if you remember, previous to that one lockdown that we had, the door was open so the kids could get in and out. Now all doors are supposed to be locked and we have a security person stationed there at the change of class.
So then when there's no change of classes, there's no.
There could be, or they would be like monitoring from the front through the Freelo Center into the Commons. They're all right there in that area.
And then during inclement weather,
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, if there's bad weather, don't they let the kids come through the auditorium? Instead of going to the, outside to the art room.
so on this, bulb scanners, it sounds very interesting. It sounds like a nice enhancement, if everything works out. I guess my only concern would be, we could talk about this more during closed session, is some of that information we start to store it, or they start to store it. It gets a little tricky.
No,
Okay. Along, technology, okay, Mr. Lee's website update. I believe that's what this is for, right?
Yes. So I've gone back out, I've researched a number of vendors. I've come back with a slate of 3 for us to discuss. What I've prepared for you and what you have in front of you is the 3 vendors with an itemized feature offering by each of them, and where they all stand, being able to provide those services. Just certain things to point out a note, some things that were important to us were being able to have a data-driven branded app, so we can connect it with the website and be able to have further outreach, not just through the website, but to the folks through the app-based presence. That was an important feature. Also the integration pieces with our other systems and the support for migrating and doing that front end work were also important elements that we were considering in our discussion. You'll see I've also included price breakdowns over multiple years, so we can do a cost analysis. We can discuss that more in closed session specifically, where I can speak to the different contract options that are available. All 3 of these vendors are available to purchase through contract with BOCES, so we don't have to go out to a private vendor contract. And also, since they go through BOCES, it also settles and kind of bifurcates that process of the problem we had last time with working through contract language.
so just generally speaking, like if I go down to the section called Community Connection, and the last one there says Board of Education, I'm unclear why 2 of the vendors don't have that marked. To me, it's just another page on the website. What's different? You wouldn't have to name names right now, but can you just determine like why did something get a check mark versus not using that as an example?
Right, so I think there's differences in type of services they offer for the support Board of Education. So in the first 2 platforms, it's specifically web-based. So you can have a page, you can have most of the content that you would normally have, the calendar and whatnot. The other vendor, what they bring to the table as a value add are things like community outreach, a communication piece, sending out blast messages and push notifications. That whole communication piece that we use through Civic Plus now.
Right, so wouldn't that be covered up there under blast reminders and notifications?
There are other bundled features under that area also that aren't necessarily communications based. That again, I'd be happy to get into in more detail.
Okay.
Okay, so overall, it looks like the 3 vendors, for the most part, have a similar feature set with some differences. And obviously we get into the contract and all that later during the closed session.
Let's call them as everything.
Yeah, last comment.
Well, that's why I wonder how they defined.
Right.
Like,
All right, this topic, one device program updates.
So I'm happy to report that our new asset management system is fully implemented and already yielding tremendous data and being able to provide good information on meeting those gaps that we've been identifying in terms of the one-on-one device program. We're implementing better accountability measures through the use of this program and have fully developed the workflows for taking devices in, assigning them out, swapping them out for repairs or whatever the case may be, and even surplusing and being able to use that for long-term replacement schedule planning, budgeting, and auditing purposes. So I'm pleased that that's in place now.
sorry. Can you just remind me, is this the same system we used also for the work orders for facility
No.
agreement? Is it, okay, two different things.
Two different things.
Thank you.
This is separate.
Okay.
To go along with that, we did mention the purchase of additional 125 Chromebooks. Those have all been received and distributed or dedicated in 100% capacity. So of those 125, we set priorities. So new students to the district that hadn't received a device at all were the first line to receive out of that. And then we went to our wait list repairs that were either just end of life or not any fault, but other than the device failure. So we replaced those, and then the remainders we put into chunks and put them out into the buildings as reserves. So students can come in and they can sign them out, or they can borrow them for the day for whatever reason, if they didn't have it, whatever the case is. And we made them available to the buildings.
The building.
Because those are loaners.
Those are loaners, and they're managed through the main offices.
Just a question there. If memory serves me, we have a ton of devices that need to be cycled out. Would it be possible to take those newer ones and instead of making them loaners, take the older devices and make those loaners?
We can, that's certainly something we could do, and I think that is the plan long term.
Okay.
Ideally, the goal would be this summer to take in all the devices and do a full device reset. And again, I have a full comprehensive plan for how that would look, which I'd be happy to talk about how that would actually be structured to be able to accommodate that across K-12. And lastly, and I think this is always like the most exciting part for me.
Trustee
Sorry.
Ballard. Question.
Sorry, before you run, when you say the loaners are available through the main offices, do you know how many are in each building?
Roughly a dozen to 15.
Is first come, first served for the
First,
day,
first serve.
day loaners, right? Not
Correct.
take home homework.
Correct. Correct.
First come, first served. Okay. Sorry.
You answered the next question, the previous comments, that all the new children to the district receive the device, so that would mean that there are no children currently waiting for a device.
And unless there are students that have a device that was broken for a reason that would need to be replaced. But we need to supplement the inventory to address that.
So there perhaps a handful.
There are perhaps some,
Mhm. Are there any devices on order? Currently?
not at this time. This shipment came in after the last meeting and we distributed it and allocated it since.
Sorry, so before you move to check this out, I don't know when we fleshed out plan, but I mean, we discussed last time a little bit one-to-one, are we one-to-one, are we not one-to-one? I don't know when, if, or whether, when or whether we would discuss this. It is budget time. And you don't have to divide this on order, and I don't know when it's appropriate to discuss that, so I'm asking you, gentlemen.
My thought, because this conversation links into other structural elements that we've been discussing, that we do it in closed session.
I would agree.
I would add that we need to have some kind of enrollment projection for next year, because we're not just rolling over the kids we've got. It may have an effect.
We have those numbers. Well,
So let's start the check this out portion.
So I'm happy to report from the instructional end and innovation side of the house that the end of January marked the National Data Privacy Week. That's always a week for us as educators and as professionals in front of children and students that we reflect on our practices and our security around making sure that we safeguard our staff and our students equally in the work we do, and that we're responsible in how we engage in technology and online content. So in addition to that, we were fortunate to be in Highview Elementary School. We participated in World Read Aloud Day. We had 5 authors come and meet virtually with the 2nd and 3rd grades. Ms. Redina was part of that activity and helping coordinate that with the building and facilitating the technology needs and helping them connect. It was an opportunity for them to tie technology and literacy together and help expand their reach and outreach to these resources. There was a very meaningful and engaging discussions by multiple authors with the students where they were able to engage with them with questions and answers and just sharing out. It was a good experience for all that were involved at the secondary level in this Manny's class. I got to witness the class lesson where they were doing working on a design process. As part of that, they were going to be redesigning the classroom space in the technology room. And as part of that, we were talking together. We thought it might be more enriching for students if we create a design challenge for that. And as they go through this, they'll go through the design process, which is really the embedment of the connection with the standards. But at the end of this, they'll actually get to do their presentations for the class, and they'll meet with, we've developed a rubric, so we'll actually score them. And Mr. Puglisi and myself will actually be part of those presentations and we'll select some winners from the class. And they'll get to actually sit with us and then take their designs and talk with us about planning and budget and how this ties into a real world setting. And perhaps some of their suggestions we can build into making these changes in the space so they can actually see their designs come to life in these spaces. So it's really tying the whole design process, technology, and critical thinking activities all into one and putting it in a real life context for that in a very meaningful way. So that was a really great activity that is in the process of happening right now. Lastly, I just want to report out on a professional development front across the district. We have a lot of PLCs and we do a lot of important work in that. One of the things that Dr. Macaluso has been very instrumental in supporting and helping is we're developing a K-12 technology PLC, which we're expected to probably launch in March. And that will be a K-12 PLC comprised of the library of English specialists, technology teachers, and central office administration and staff to begin just incorporating technology into all the grade levels more inclusively, equitably, have more presence in building capacity in our building staff so they can further turn key out to the classrooms and just have more of a presence of resource and expertise and availability to the students, helping them engage with technology in 21st century learning classrooms. Lastly, a number of updates have happened with the infrastructure planning, specifically in the 5-year plan. So I believe through the draft process, you will have an opportunity to see that section. We can speak more to that if you have specific questions about that. Again, I always request that we speak about those specifics in closed session, as there's a lot of safety elements involved in those discussions. The next phase of this also will be the wireless segment of the district. Starting with this building and then moving out into the elementary buildings. And then one of the questions that was raised in the last meeting was, what are our considerations as we go through this design process and strategic plan is, how are we planning on building out for the future? So I think the information that I can share about how we will build out moving forward in the next 5-year plan.
Any questions on any of the topic? Then go into more in closed session.
Right, so now I'm waiting for the closed session to happen, right?
Good. Okay. All right, any new business?
Okay.
we had a, security audit come back. Is that going to be something that this committee is going to look at? It might be closed session, but we're going to look at it in the future.
So the security audit is going to be reviewed by the Board of Education as a whole. And then once that's done, we will be presenting the board, will be inviting the auditor to present it to the public, the community at large at a future meeting as well.
And then if they refer anything back to us for in-depth discussion, that the board has the option to do that. Okay, good, fine.
And you also will be the same meeting that's gonna come for tomorrow. We'll be meeting separately with all the other buildings and their safety teams. We'll be setting those up.
Did you have something else? The new business that you already?
No,
No.
thank you.
Awesome. All right. So that said, let's go ahead and, well, is there a motion to close open session, go into closed session? To
I
discuss
move that we go into closed session to discuss matters that may affect student safety.
as well as contracts, yes.
Sure.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so with that said, we're gonna go ahead and close the meeting out because we'll be coming out of the meeting. We will be coming out of closed session and adjourning. So for the public, thank you for joining us this evening and we'll